What's up, YouTube? Long time no see. I haven't got a video out in quite a while. It's February 28th today, and I figured I'd get out and kind of, I guess, I know what's been on my mind is just my plans for this food plot season coming up, and figured I'd kind of run down what I look for, especially when like starting a new food plot. It can be kind of tricky. If you haven't established one, you just kind of got to do maintenance on them, but I'd say when it comes down to it, your first thing is soil samples. That'll tell you what all your different levels are. You're looking mostly at your NPK, your nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. That'll come up on your samples. I'm not going to go super in depth into it. Snow geese. But yeah, I'm not going to go super in depth into what to look at as far as that, I guess. A lot of it too is going to depend on what kind of crop you're going to try to grow. If you're going to do corn, you're going to want to do a lot of nitrogen. That responds pretty good to that. Same thing with like Egyptian wheat. Nitrogen will make it take off and do really good. And then after kind of you get your soil sample established, and some guys, which I've did it before too, I'm too lazy to grab a soil sample and just start out with like a maintenance of like a 13-13-13 that you get from Menards or Farm Fleet or Walmart or whatever. But yeah, if you go ahead and you get your soil sample, you can always go to a local co-op or there's Nutrient Ag around here, River Valley. There's a lot of them out there. Just Google on your phone, retail ag locations, and should be able to find something there. And then they could also go over more in depth with you on what you're going to need to apply and get the specifics. So, but yeah, after you get your soil sample, take care of your soil first, and then after that, you're going to kind of have to decide how you're going to do weed control. Tillage. For the most part, I've started it out with just raking and pulling like a little disc that I actually just got last year's first year, and I used it and it worked good. But this year I actually just got a Kubota B2601, which is like a 26 horse compact tractor. So having a rototiller on that will actually be the best I've ever had. But yeah, you can definitely make do with just a rake and hand tools, and especially when you're dealing with them smaller plots, you might not even be able to get a tractor or something like that into. But and then after you get your soil figured out, get your tillage, how you're gonna do that, and then I know some people are kind of maybe on the fence about using herbicides or anything like that. I usually stick to glyphosate pretty much. I'll do that as my burn down before I do till. And then when you till, you're probably gonna get another round of weeds that are gonna come up and germinate. So that's the one bad thing about actual tillage is you're kind of disturbing the weed bed. So, and then like I'm standing in my soybeans right now. So if you plant Roundup Ready soybeans, you can actually spray right over top of them, and it will only kill the weeds, and it'll leave the beans alone, which worked out really good. I had a pretty clean plot here this year, but the deer didn't end up eating it as much as I thought they would. They like the green a lot better. But then after you go ahead and get all that figured out, and then your next thing I guess is what you're gonna plant. There's tons of different options out there. One thing I guess I stay away from, not saying that's bad or anything, sugar beets. I've heard a lot of failures on that, I guess. Never tried it though, so I shouldn't even say that, I guess. If you guys want to try it and let me know in the comments. But I usually stick to soybeans, rapeseed, anything in like the brassica family really. Turnips, but there's purple top, there's daikon radishes, which are like a tillage radish, you'll hear a lot of times. And then clover, alfalfa. I like clover is good, but a lot of times I noticed that when actual hunt season's around, they don't care. It's more of I would consider it more of a summer plot. And once you get a couple hard frosts, it lays down pretty close to the ground, and there's not much to eat there. But if you got like a really small plot, like I actually am gonna put one plot into clover this year. I put radish and turnips there. Well, the deer had them ate down there pretty good before bow season even opened. So I'm gonna go ahead and go to clover in that plot just so I can maybe hold food there a little bit longer and it can stand up to the browse pressure. But then like I said, beans are good. I thought late winter would be a good source and they'd be all over, and it might just be the plot I put them in here, so that might be why they didn't work so good. I use winter rye a lot of times. Once you're coming into like that August, September time period, if I got bare spots in a plot or a plot's not as thick as I would like, I'll go ahead and broadcast winter rye in there. That'll kind of take off pretty early. And then also this spring, I planted some over kind of in a cove. I can try to paint over there later, but it's already greening up. So it's like the first thing to green up in the spring, which this is kind of when there's not much to eat out there. It's all been picked over pretty good. So winter rye can be a good little extra tool. I try to stay away from the throw and grow products. They say you don't have to do any tillage. They do have their place. That was actually the first plot I ever put in. I put in this little tiny timber patch and it came up good. It looked awesome, but it's mostly grass like what would be in your yard. So if you have to and you got a really hard to reach spot, or you just want to try to experiment with food plots a little bit, you'll definitely be able to grow something there. But I'd say it'd be on my lowest choices to pick for deer. If they got something better, they'll probably go to it instead of that. And then, yeah, I guess you want to decide too, it depends on what you're going to plant. You'll want to go with, you're going to do spring or fall planted, and your spring plant stuff's your full season, your soybeans, you'll need your corn. You could do clover and alfalfa in spring. A lot of guys like to do in the fall, a little better establishment, wetter soils. You don't have to go through that first year of drought in the summertime, but I have had success doing it in the spring before with clover, and it works. If you're gonna do that, I like frost seeding, which this I would say would be the time to do it. I don't like to frost seed while you got too much snow on, because then you'll start to get runoff. If you have a couple inches of snow and you get heavy rains, it'll wash that seed down into your low spots, and you won't get very good seeding. But if you do it when all the snow's off, you're kind of in that wet period, that's when I like to get that clover seed down. And when you're frost seeding, I like to make sure like it was an existing plot. That way the weeds were under control the previous year, so it's not going to be overtaken. And then you can also mow to keep clover and alfalfa in check and keep the weeds suppressed in it. So, but yeah, and then your fall planted plots, you're going to be looking at your turnips, anything in that brassica family there. Yeah, I usually shoot for middle to end of July into August, and like I said, I'm down here in southeast Iowa, so you'd have to, depending on what your location, you'd have to maybe change that a little bit. But that's probably my favorite thing to plant. The deer seem to just eat it up, especially that green. I like turnips, they'll eat that top green part. It seems like they hit it really good during our bow season. In that late October period into November, they really hit those greens. And then as it gets colder, you get into more of that December time period, they'll kind of move more to those bulbs. So they're a pretty good draw. Like I said, I had a lot of little shot plots that had those in there this year, and man, those deer hammered them. So actually my wife, the video of her deer was right at one of my plots, and I can't think of the seed brand that I had in there, but it was mostly, I think it was Ethiopian cabbage in that, and then the rest was like purple top turnips, I believe, and rapeseed. So, but yeah, there's a lot of different options out there. And I actually really enjoy food plots, and working on the land myself I was sitting there during deer season this year thinking about what I wanted to do this year different. So it's kind of an addiction once you start to do it. But, well, I'll leave it at that, guys. If you have any comments, make sure to drop them down below the video, and subscribe if you haven't yet. And hopefully we got turkey season rolling up here, and just kind of still working on it, but took a little break here through the winter months, and I found out it's a lot of work trying to film my hunts. So, thanks for tuning in, guys.